Hey, it's Jim, and we're going to do a little go through my full review, results of some testing and what have you on the Big Cat Fat Cat 500 XL, which I did an unboxing on and just a first look. Go through some of the specs, but spend most of the time riding. So let's check them out. So I'm just going to show you quickly the few things that came with. I talked before about it has a little toolkit with a multi-tool, some patches, tire levers, pretty nice touch there. 2 amp charger that's quite heavy, 1.7 pounds, one of the heavier chargers I've tested. 2 amp output. I do like its prong style, and I'll show that over on the battery. It's a little more secure feeling, and I like that this kind of it just feels really solid when you're charging the bike. So just coming over generally on the bike, I mean, it's sharp looking, right? It's I've gotten, probably of all the bikes I've ridden, I've probably gotten the most attention when I ride this out on the bike path. One, too, is the fat tires do make a pretty loud humming noise, but a lot of it I think is the looks of the bike. So all the dimensions with timestamps and all that stuff will be down in the description, with some other information if I have it. So one of the things I'm just talking about right here, and I don't know if you can really tell it in this perspective, it's a long bike, right? So with the silverfish style battery in the center of the bike, it kind of pushes the wheelbase out. So this wheelbase, I measured it at 47 inches, so it's almost 4 feet. And that gives you a bike that's a little over 6 feet long. So it's a big footprint of a bike. Some other numbers of interest. It has a very high bottom bracket, 11 inches off the ground, which is high. And one thing that impacts seat height when you're trying to get really comfortable leg extension. So I end up having to have the seat pretty high, but then that means it's really difficult for me to reach the ground when I hop off the seat. So the minimum seat height was 33 inches, and the standover height, which really when you stand on here, this is the front of your body's right in here, is right about 32 inches. So that's still a pretty tall bike. Now, so I'm just going to come through the bike and hit kind of the high points here and not spend too much time. It's 500 watt Bafang geared hub motor in the rear with a Shimano 7-speed cassette, and that's on a gear range of 12 to 28 tooth. You got a Shimano Tourney rear derailleur, which is at the low end of Shimano's range. They all work fine. You just sometimes need to have you have more maintenance and adjustability I've found on the little lower end derailleurs. Come back here to the Silverfish style battery, which is listed as a 48 volt 13 amp hour battery with LG cells. In the inside of the battery it says 12 amp hours and no indication of cells, so I can't really confirm if these are actually LG cells. This is the charging port. I kind of like this sliding cap style versus the ones that has a rubber plug. Feels quite solid. Got a 48 tooth chain ring, a little bit different, and I counted this as a 6 magnet sensor, and I think the website listed 12. And this is, and you'll see it more on the other side, this is where the controller is housed. They also got 170 millimeter crank arms and a nice solid metal wide well-go pedal. So coming to the back of the bike, Kenda Krusade 2-inch 26 by 4-inch fat tires. It looks like to me a double-walled rim with punch outs. Sorry, there's a little bit of mud on it. I've been riding this quite a bit, trying to get so I have a good thorough review for you guys. Got Textro Aries mechanical disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors, and I think I just added an extra syllable to mechanical. A independent of the battery pack rear light that's operated by a switch here, which, you know, I'm not thrilled with that. I like the idea of having it tied into the battery. The rear rack that is supplied with Big Cat's bikes is really nice, and it was really easy to attach when I got it. Good kickstand position away from the pedals. One of the negatives with the Silverfish batteries is you have to have the seat out of the way, so it's got a little lever here in the bottom to tilt the seat out. 27.2 millimeter, very standard diameter seat post, which I do like that. Depends on how you have your seat post locked, you might have to do that. But then the idea is you release all that direction, and then the whole battery pack pulls out and you can then charge it off the bike. and you can see, yeah, you know, it's the Silverfish style. I've ridden it. You get a little bit of, you know, potential for getting some dirt and mud under there. I would just check that periodically if you're riding in sand or mud or things that, you know, this bike is really designed to be riding in. So a note down here, you got a little battery indicator on top. That just charged this up so I can ride it for the review here. The key does have to stay in. I'm not a fan of this, so I just pulled the other key off. That way I wasn't jingling around. The seat is generous and looks sharp. I find it to be really uncomfortable for distance. You'll see on my range test, I'm going to be using my own saddle up here and not using this quick release mechanism. It looks good. A lot of these aren't really comfortable for long range, even though they're a comfort saddle. Same disc brake setup on the front with a Blaze light integrated headlight. And some pretty nice cable management up in here. I like the simplicity of when they do this. That's easy to move and maintain, and you've got some different replacement cutoffs here if that was needed to be replaced down the road. We got the 4-finger with cushions, levers, and the bell. So it's, you know, it's finely set up for its budget category, I would say. Bike weight. I weighed this bike at 64 pounds, which is a bit more than what is on the website, and it's made for a 325 pound rider. So just looking at the bike here before we go for a ride, you can just see the paint job and everything from this angle. Even though there's a lot of branding, it's sharp looking, I feel. And you know, it comes together. Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to get on my helmet and we're going to ride. I'm going to spend as much time as riding as I can on this review. And I've done one range test already that I'll talk about, and I've done all my acceleration and braking testing. I'm going to talk about those too. But I'm going to conduct a range test and a hill climb right now with you along. So let's go for it. All right, so we're just here on the Big Cat, and I'm going to start out in assist level 0. So you can see how it rides in that, and I didn't shift down, so I'm going to use the throttle a little bit to help me go. And then you have to be aware that the throttle is not available in assist level 0. I always forget about that, so I'm going to get going with a little assist level 1, toggle down to more. And you know, we're in assist level 0. This bike feels so heavy, and there's a lot of resistance in assist level 0. I mean, I'm not going very fast. I'm pedaling pretty hard. So assist level is 0, and some of the functionality you have in the display, you got average speed, maximum speed, and current speed. Pressing these two buttons together lets you change some of the parameters. I've put the top speed at the highest it will go to, which I think was 40 miles per hour. So I'm going to put into assist level 1. So the throttle is over on the right. Simple twist throttle. You can see there's about 2 or 3 seconds of delay, and then this button turns it off so it's not live. You just have to be careful because it's pretty easy to hit that button and not obvious to tell if it's in or out. Shifter, this setup you've seen on a lot of other bikes, especially one of the biggest names out there right now in direct purchase bikes. I won't mention them. And you know, it works just fine. It's all basic level stuff. So here in assist level 1, that's the cadence sensor working. It's not all that fast. It's a Ginger. I do like assist level 1 on this bike for trail riding. Works quite well. I do like that the throttle is fully powered up when you're in any of the assist levels 1 through 5. So you can, you know, it's nice for starting off at a stoplight, stop sign, what have you. So that's assist level 1 there. I'm going to bump it up to assist level 2. You see, it's a pretty gentle increase, but still quite controlled. With this 6-magnet cadence sensor, I'm going to stop pedaling here, and it took about 2.5 seconds. There, motor's engaged, disengaged, so you can kind of hear how long that's taking. This bike has a lot of chain slap, so I put a chain guard, a slap protector, Velcro one down there for this ride, because as we do some trail riding, it really bangs around, and this bike would have benefited with a chainstay protector. Alright, I'm going to stop up here. Somebody said I don't stop for stop signs. I usually do. Alright, so we're in assist level 2, bumping into level 3. And this is where you start really getting bumps from a speed perspective. I'm gonna get up to assist level 4 now. And this, I should be able to give you up this hill a little more of the engagement and disengagement of the motor. So you can see with this magnet sensor, there's a pretty good amount of delay. And you're hearing a little rear disc brake chatter back there. The rear disc brake has a pretty good amount of, I'm just having I did a little readjustment, and at speed, I think there could be the rear wheel might be a little out of true, and so that brake is just making a little contact with those pads. So here we are in assist level. I'm going to slow down so you can hear this motor working. You can kind of hear there's that quite a bit. It's a pretty substantial delay in there. Alright, so now we're in assist level 5, and this is when the bike, of course, really starts moving. It does have brake inhibitors on both sides, so you know you can control that speed. Got a pretty good amount of headwind coming in here. I'm gonna, on your left. So even with this pretty significant headwind, I'm able to get pretty close to that top speed on the display. We'll see what it's on the GPS. One note on the geometry of this bike, I have a 32-inch inseam, and I have the handlebars tilted all the way back. With the seat at the position that works for me with leg extension, I have a hard time touching the ground when stopped. And the stretch is still a little long. Even though there is kind of that delay on the motor shutoff, it does have brake inhibitors, like I just said, on both sides. And these big fat tires, even though they're really noisy, do handle quite well. So you probably saw that just jump down. That's a 5-bar battery indicator. I'm running the highest power level, or really close to it, and with this headwind, you know, it's probably sucking a lot of juice. With this fat tire bike, you do feel the extra rotational resistance in these tires. You feel it. Now, my previous range test, and I'll put that up on the screen, I got right under 30 miles with a pretty good efficiency, like 16 watt-hours per mile. So the smaller geared motor seems to really help out on the efficiency department. You can see the bike is pretty nice and stable. There's a little bit of a bias to the left of center in the front, it seems like. I don't know if the forks are slightly tweaked. They are aluminum forks, which I would really like to see steel forks on something you're going to be doing some off-roading on, which is what we're going to be doing today. But you know, not having suspension, even the fat tires, it's not really designed for like hardcore off-roading. And you know, the extra weight affects maneuverability and those kind of things. But it should allow us to get some places that we wouldn't otherwise go. All right, so I just stopped here along the river. We're about 8 miles into our range test. You can see I have my saddle on here rather than stock saddle because I found that very uncomfortable. But you can see geometry wise where I have to have my seat with my 32-inch inseam. So with the high bottom bracket and long wheelbase, sometimes the geometry is a little tough on these bikes for a really good fit without maybe changing a stem or some other stuff like that, just to be aware of. Another thing I want to notice, the rear rack has a 25 kilogram or 55 pound weight limit, and these pannier rails work pretty well. My only notice is some types of panniers have a top clip that kind of gets hidden under here, makes it a little tough to access. I weighed the battery just before this, and it's 8.1 pounds. I don't think I mentioned that before. But what we're gonna do here is most of the time I found with these fat tire bikes and gravel like this, you don't really have to reduce tire pressure. The one thing I really like the power delivery of this motor, the geared 500 watt hub motor. I like the efficiency you gain in lower power motors, and like right now we're gonna use throttle only, and it works like a granny gear. It really has good fine control, and I'm gonna go down to sys level 1 because I also find that really nice for trail riding. So let's get back onto the path. So I just the throttle only right there up this little hill. Now I'm gonna do an actual hill climb in a little bit, but you can see it's and the throttle has nice, even though there's a delay in it, once you get past that delay, it has nice control. So it's really easy to kind of do what I feel like doing right here, and riding this more like a bicycle, you know, more like a dirt bike than a true bike. Now we're gonna do the old Clio climb here. 3, 2, 1. And you'll see that this thing is climbing the hill pretty slowly, and you saw that delay. That's probably why the acceleration was a little bit on the slow side. I'll put where it fell within other bikes, but it's not bad. But acceleration isn't really its strong point. And I'll also put that stats on the hill climb there, and then I'm going to do a little braking going on this hill, and then I'll put the stats on how these brakes performed compared to other brakes. So you can lock them up pretty easily coming down this hill, and I think the rotational force of these bigger tires leads to a little longer stopping distance. Just some light trail riding. You can see that with full tire pressure, it definitely cushions a ride a lot better than a standard pedal bike would. But there's still some. You can tell you feel a lot of it. It's just kind of dampened. And that's like one of the concerns I just noticed is when you've engaged the pedal assist, and if you're not really judicious about covering the brake levers to shut off the motor, you can get it kind of working a little bit against you if you're not ready for it, because it doesn't shut off that quickly. All right, here's some pretty big cobbles. We'll see how this works. And this might be about let's see if we can do it. Oh, even with full air pressure, it did pretty good, really. And like I said before, I do like this kind of granny gear, or that's the wrong word, but the way the throttle engages, it's pretty easy to work with. The throttle is almost in some ways the wiser way to go when you're out here on a trail. The taller bottom bracket helps with some of this stuff that we're seeing here, where there's a little more exposure. And we still got, even if it's just level 1 or 2, you have it there when you want a little burst, which is nice to have. These dirt paths like this are no problem at all with fat tires. So I'm trying to get down to a section of beach over here that I think will have some sand, and I can lower the air pressure potentially. And I really don't know where the hell I'm at. I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna kind of push it a little bit through some of this stuff. There's a benefit of mechanical disc brakes. I don't mind the mechanical disc brakes. They tend to give you a little more adjustability room to kind of counter the more budget rims and budget brake rotors on most budget e-bikes, but this falls into that category. I don't really know this section of trail, so I'm gonna take it a little easier through here. There's also some people up there, and there's not enough room to pass comfortably on this section. The pollen is kicking. Bike, I lowered the pressure in the tires. Should help quite a bit on these rocks, and see how it does. So I would say that's a pretty big drawback, I would say, with this system, because like right now I'm in assist level 1. When that kicks in, I really want a little more control than that in this loose stuff, but then in assist level 0 I have no throttle. So what it ends up having to be is a combination of pedal assist, brake to cut it off, and then throttle. So not quite ideal. Pretty consistent stuff like this has a little bit of sand in it. The assist level 1 works out okay, but as soon as you start getting something a little more technical, you really need a little more control than that gives you. Here's some interesting cobbly type stuff, like more gravel. Most bikes would kind of sink down into this. You know, let's see what we can do here. I mean, that's nothing too fancy, obviously, but, you know. Well, there's some sand. Looks like we found some sand. So, anyway, here we are down by the American River. It's looking pretty nice down here. You see some folks out, as we're allowed to do, but generally easy to keep appropriate distance from folks. I'm going to turn back and go into the sand here. Oh, well, I dug in that sand a little bit. Well, even with the fat tires, turning in sand isn't the easiest thing in the world. And I didn't reduce the tire pressure that much. I'm probably still running 10 psi, 15 psi. I'm gonna do a little technical stuff right in here, kind of. Ooh, a little. Well, that was pretty fun. Oh, looky here. All right. So, you can see I took the air pressure down, but I didn't take it down a ton. You know, we still got some pressure in there. I'm going to see how this does. I think it's going to be fine. I'm going to get up on that levee and I continue this range test. So here we go. So this would be a little bit more like what you'd find on the beach. This is a pretty little spot. I haven't been here before, and I mean, it's not like perfect traction. Like if I try to turn and it's a little compromised, I might wipe out here. But it's certainly a lot better than, you know, if I didn't have these fat tires. And, you know, I feel like I can get around pretty good. And you know, I haven't even went to the extreme of really lowering the tire pressure. All right, let's cruise on out. So, you know, with this thing, I can kind of just pick a line, bump up an assist level. I like that it is pretty nice and easily accessible there. Now, one of the limitations of the 500 watt motor being a little smaller than some, what I just noticed is coming up a little embankment with some loose terrain. I grabbed the throttle pretty hard and I didn't quite have everything I needed. So, you know, that's just something to be aware of. Oh, this stuff's pretty gnarly. All right, here we go. It's like the moon lander here. Pick a line, pick a line, pick a line. Oh, well, that was... Whew. All right, so that was pretty fun. Got my heart rate up to about 100 there. Just a lot of it was not knowing if I was going to ditch it. Plus, I found it was easiest to turn off and on assist, throttle, pedal power. The issue that I noticed right through there is I started to get a little cramp in my hand just because you're trying to hold on at the same time you're trying to work the throttle. So you're kind of grabbing with these fingers and twisting with the others. All right, so Jim here, about 16 miles in, and I'm pretty much gonna come back at the end of this range test. I just wanted to show you what the top speed of the throttle is, and I'm gonna do that throttle only as soon as I get out here on the path. Alright, so we're maxed out throttle only. You can see that it sucks a lot of battery, and you'll see here there's quite a lot of battery rebound on the indicator, so this indicator isn't especially accurate. I would kind of depend more on, after you've ridden a few times, kind of knowing how much distance you're covering. It's Jim. I just want to wrap up this review since I ran out of Camry battery. All in all, I went about, I'll put it on the screen, I'll put my little GPS printout, and there'll be some check-ins with the camera as well. I think it was around between 25 and 26 miles. That ended up being in between assist 4 and 5, a lot of it when I was on the paved. I was planning to do the whole one in assist level 5, but I realized early on I wasn't going to make it back home if I did that, and this thing's a beast to ride with no assist. Hope some of that off-road stuff helped. It's a pretty capable bike. I do like the way the motor outputs its power. The cadence sensor, there's some delay in there that can make it a little difficult. You have to get used to how to ride it off trail. All in all, it's a real, one more look here. It's a really good looking bike. Kind of wish they had just made it with a Brooks saddle. That really makes a little sharp touch to it, and I had to put on that little chain stay protector like I mentioned. Got a little dusty from the trails, but kind of got it out there and kind of where you're supposed to get this thing. If you have any comment about this, if you have experience with this bike or fat bikes, or have a question about something, let me know. Thumbs up helps on YouTube searching and that kind of stuff, and subscribe if you want to be alerted to more content. But anyway, hope you're having a good one. Thanks. More wind, less effort.